All right, we are live. Hello and welcome to the first episode in a new series where we talk to senior engineers in the tech industry around the state of hiring. Today we have Suraj with us. Hey Suraj, what's
Hi,
up? Kya chal raha hai?
all going good. It's all going good. Excited for this.
Just set the context. Can you tell me how many interviews in total have you taken? Like just a rough number.
Probably taken around 10 interviews and shadowed maybe 20 more.
Okay. Can you also tell us what's the difference between taking the interview and shadowing the interview?
So before we start interviewing folks, we shadow some more senior folks in the process to get hold of the entire hiring process and how to observe a person. Because it's not only about solving problems, you have to see the behavioral pattern of the
Okay.
person. If you give the person some hints or feedback, how the person responds to that feedback. So all those things, how do they actually get to know the real developer inside you? So yeah, to learn the art, it's better if you see it in person. The
Right.
shadowing process is for that purpose. Yeah.
It's an interesting point wherein you said you're not just interested in the answers, but how the person receives feedback as well. Because when you're working in a team, then of course you have to collaborate as well. You're not just working individually. And if you collaborate, you should have the ability to take in the feedback. If you're just like, no, my way is though always best, how I do things, that's final. That does not work in a team. You mentioned you've taken 10 plus interviews. Does anyone stand out? Anything memorable about the candidate? It could be good or bad, just anything that you remember. Which
There's one,
company, the candidate who surprised you?
I think there's one. So I have mostly been linked with front end development. Just recently, I shifted to back end development for a year or so. In the front end, I was into desktop apps, web apps, and recently iOS development, right? So I was following a channel called Hacking with Swift. They give a lot of useful content for the Swift iOS development. So I was actually interviewing a fellow. I asked him questions, very great, like great answers from him. I was impressed, and I was so impressed that I eventually asked him that, hey, you were pretty good with the answers. From where did you study? He said, okay, I'm actually a moderator in the channel called Hacking with Swift. I was like,
Oh.
okay, I think I'm not qualified to interview this guy. Someone else. That happened once.
Okay, I think here the surprising element was he was part of something that you already follow.
Did
Uh,
I learn?
that he learned from. So I think that's crazy. What has been your worst experience so far?
So I was interviewing a person, and 3 years into iOS development, which was people. I know that we want to show ourselves the best in our CV, but when you write something on the CV, you should at least back it up with proper data. So in the CV, he wrote that he architected the entire app. And I said, okay, where do you store offline data? Because you're showing something, right? He said, "Ki, we don't
Hmm.
store offline data. If you don't store offline data, then how are you showing the content on the screen? No, we create it at runtime. You cannot create the user data at runtime. The point is, if you don't know something, don't write about it, because if you write something great on your most recent project, I'm going to talk about that, right? I'm going to
Definitely.
dig into it. And because sometimes it's not always about, hey, I give you this question to solve, you have solved this, you're hired. If your previous project is somewhat similar to what we do, then we are more interested in that thing as well, right? Like you'll have less onboarding time,
Ramping up time, correct.
ramping up time. This was the one that actually bugged me because the guy wasn't understanding what I was asking him. Okay, if it's not stored offline, then how are we opening the app? How are we showing you
Right.
the?
Yeah, I think it's one of the like common things I also see when I talk to or see a lot of people who are currently interviewing, which is people in their past experiences, they write more things than they have done because it's very hard to go and verify, right? You could be part of something and you can say, hey, I did the whole thing. Or even like your team did something and you can just say, hey, I've done this. But in an interview, it's very easy to make it out. Like you said, you ask a couple of questions, and especially someone who's senior, like you have spent 8 years in the industry now, like within 1 2 minutes, you'll be able to figure out does this person has substance या फिर just हवा में है.
And I get the point that you want to show your best self and you want to exaggerate your work, but back it up.
The problem with this approach is कि let's say as an interview, if you find one inconsistency in your
Mhm.
resume versus your skills, it casts a shadow of doubt on everything else.
Yeah.
Now it's like, nee, ab to you're a liar. So now I don't really know whether other things you have written are true or not. So then your entire candidature is just up in the air.
Yeah, I was in a stage in my career where I was a senior iOS developer, but I didn't want to be called as a senior iOS developer. I was a web developer first, then I was a web app developer, then I was desktop developer, then I became an iOS developer. And at the time I became an iOS developer, I became a senior in my company. But my point was I didn't want it to be only called a senior iOS developer. So I wanted to explore parts of backend development as well. So to make that change within the same company only, I had to understand there's a product called Skype.
Hmm.
Because
Microsoft product.
it's not fully deprecated now, it still
Yeah.
exists
Yeah.
for some Skype for business. So I had to read its entire architecture. And then as a side project, I worked on some of the problems that they had. So I was legitimately working on a problem and then telling the when I was interviewed, internal transfer takes interviews again.
Right.
So I was interviewed for the same thing. I said, "Ki, okay, I did work on this. So then it made sense. If I had not worked on one single thing on backend and simply talking systems an interview, I would have got caught. Yeah.
Yeah. And this work was above and beyond your like normal current work, right?
Yeah.
Like nights and weekends, like not in the normal working hours.
What a non-working hours. It take time.
And what was your team when you were in iOS, and what's the current team in the backend?
I was working
What's
on
the
something called a SharePoint list. It worked for business users. We don't have that much MAU, but when we try to make it work for consumers,
so MAU is monthly active users
monthly
for
active,
the listeners. Okay.
monthly active users, sorry. Yeah.
jargon हो जाता है ना ये.
But then for consumer users, we have realized the fact that Google has consumer users in the DNA.
Hmm.
Microsoft is trying to learn how to get consumer users, but I think it's so much like habit generation on their end, right? That when they open photos, people say Google Photos. People don't say OneDrive or any other app, right? So that is a habit forming business that they have gotten us into, and it's
Yeah.
difficult to
I
realize it
think
in
the playbook is different entirely for a B2C and a B2B business. And B2B has great margins. If you actually go and see Microsoft's revenue top line numbers, it's crazy. It's just that since it's not much of it is B2C, so a general consumer doesn't know. But B2B mein Microsoft is miles ahead. It's crazy.
people don't come to Microsoft because we have the best products in the market in terms of B2B. They come for data security and trust.
That's what matters in for an enterprise, right? The trust, the data security, the availability promise, right? It will not go down, and all of the other things, the entire ecosystem, the experience it has gained over decades now. So yeah, I think that's it. So what are like instant deal breakers for you in an interview? You mentioned one is key. If you find someone lying, the experience does not match what they have written on the CV, that's like an instant reject. Anything else?
Yeah, yeah. Your behavioral aspect, understand that no one can design an app or backend in one single shot, right? People ask us more questions, right? But when some feedback is given, right, not to some people even I've seen get emotional also saying, hey, how can you say that I'm wrong because I've read it? That sort of things are a big red flag because it's about the culture part then, right? It's no longer about code. You join a team, you create a very toxic culture there. So it's better to avoid. I think more than CV में gaps is fine. Everyone does that. But behavioral aspect is something that I personally take it as a number one thing.
Got it. I just want to like circle back to one thing you said, just remembered. You said you did not want to be called an iOS developer.
Yeah.
Like, can you walk me through the thought process? How did you decide this? What was your thinking behind this?
So the two paths to grow in a company after you become a senior, right? You either pick up a path of a manager or remain an engineer. My preferred path for now, again, it is all for now. I've seen people
Yeah.
switch. So I was preferring to take up the engineering path, right? And engineering path, mein, I have worked on n number of things. I have worked on web apps. I have worked on backend earlier. When you term someone as a senior iOS developer, right? You're bounding their capabilities to a specific platform.
Okay.
My point was that if I've worked on n number of platforms, so there are two kind of engineers. One are specialists.
Right.
are expert in iOS or Android or backend. Then you have some folks who know the basics of all of them and know how to join them together. Hey, things are working like this here, so maybe I can pick some things here and join link it here. It's very useful in some aspects actually in terms of architecting solutions, because when I work with principal iOS developers, they have no idea what happens, what goes beyond inside a DB,
Hmm.
or what is OAuth 2, how does OAuth 2.0 actually works,
Right.
what is a TLS handshake, why it is required, why it may impact the perf mode. So those refinements and all those things, or architecting different pieces of your application or your service, I want to be in that space and not be a specialist specifically. Especially in the current age of AI, I wanted to be at a place which is again safe. I can have my job at least for a few more
Right.
years. The story goes like this, that I was an iOS developer.
Mhm.
I shifted to backend because I thought, okay, hey, front end may have worked on n number of things. On backend, I want to really get my hands dirty with something at scale, like a service with around 10 million active users and with a global scale. Like
Right. Right.
understand the deployment process, the pain that comes up, the bugs that come, the SEF tools. I want to experience that. So I went and did my work there. Then I said, okay, hey, now that I've experienced front end and back end, I came back to my previous team of iOS developer because they wanted someone who knows the end-to-end flow.
Right.
That is something I want to be placed at. And when I came back, I was working with folks who were proper iOS developers.
Hmm.
In terms of thinking about a solution to a problem, you don't need a language. But I was scared because the code reviews or the pull request that happens, right? I was scared of them because I was already a senior in iOS, went back to some unknown space as per them, backend, and came back.
Right.
Things on front end they changed very quickly. At some time there was React, then Vue.js came right on the front end side. Then I don't know what is right now.
Svelte आ गया है.
Well, I see. I am not even. I left web development and see some new tech
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
When I left, it was Swift. When I came back, it was Swift UI. It was
Hmm.
some combine and whatnot. Everything has
Right.
changed. And I thought to myself, कि okay, मैं किस जगह पे आ गया हूँ? तो it was
Hmm.
an issue. Like I lost my credibility there. At that time, AI came into picture, and I tell you what, as any sort of engineer that you are, with the current things that are happening in the AI world, language is no longer a barrier
Very true. Very
for
true.
me. I just wrote the basic code using variables and whatnot. The loop concept is same everywhere. Try
Right.
catch block is everywhere. You write it and then you simply tell your OpenAI or Copilot to write code for you with proper prompt engineering. If you have a reference to a code that the Copilot can, or for the matter, any large language model can refer
Hmm.
to that. Hey, this is the coding style that I want to follow for this language. You're good.
Right.
After coming back to iOS for in the last 6 months, I have not written even in one single shot 100 lines of code.
It's more about thinking now.
Yeah, yeah. You simply give it a prompt, you give it a reference, and then it's all done for you. And they have so much good tools that people don't talk about much, which we'll talk about later, of course.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's good to be, in my opinion, good to be a sort of person who knows everything.
Hmm.
You can link it together. It's an architect role, right? You can architect
Right.
things.
Right.
Being a specialist will be an will be an issue
Right.
in my
I think this is a good takeaway for people who are listening, which is you start a job as a specialist, yes, but over time, as you grow in your career, if you're just limited to that, then it's going to be risky. So the more domains you have experience in, the more you become interdisciplinary. Front end also, back end also, ops, cloud also, mobile also, maybe a bit of design, whatever. Like there are hundreds of things to go into, but once you know a bit of everything, then you know कि अच्छा इधर ये constraints आता है, तो we design this keeping that in mind. Otherwise at the end when you are giving the handoff, then आते कि नहीं ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता, something like that, and then you are like you have wasted that sort of time. So if you're interdisciplinary, you can actually save a lot of time for the companies, and that makes you more valuable.
yeah, just to give you more example in our case, right?
Mhm.
I can't name the feature now because it's like that is we're working on. Yeah. So there was a feature we're working on, and it will be implemented both on iOS, Android, and web.
Okay.
And relied on some static data, and that sort of static data dictated the entire user experience. And we want the data to be same across all the platforms.
Right.
The question came, कि, hey, where should we store it? An iOS dev may say, hey, store it in a config store or local or whatever.
Hmm.
Android dev may say something else. I said CDN. Pretty simple, right? You have
Right.
better distribution, better performance, caching will be done by default. You don't need to worry about all that stuff. And static content,
Right.
fine. So, but to say the word CDN, you got to know what CDN is, right? I'm not saying
Correct.
that you get details of architecture, but at least know about what CDN is and what's the purpose of it.
Yeah, it's almost like knowing the map, right? Fans of video games. So explore. This is what the map looks like. Then you can use resources effectively. Otherwise, if you're just in your area where you started and थोड़ा सा explore किया है, then you don't know what you don't know. मतलब तुम्हें पता ही नहीं कि दुनिया में और क्या चीजें हैं.
Yeah, so in the team that I worked on, right, all of them were mobile developers.
Okay.
All said, "What is CDN?" I said, "Yeah." So there you have a distinction. That's why I wanted to not to be linked as an iOS developer. I love tech. I want to work on tech. And I think when you label yourself as a senior iOS developer, you will be given
Hmm.
problems for iOS development only.
Right.
They
Right.
won't ask for these problems.
And what's your current role title now?
Not a senior iOS developer, senior software engineer.
Senior software engineer. That makes a lot of sense. It's
I'm
almost like a problem solver.
Microsoft doesn't have a senior iOS developer role anyways.
अच्छा,
It's
ठीक है.
internal, it's just an internal thing.
Acha, okay, got it. Now let's move to a rapid fire round just for fun. I think just to do a quick Q&A. So don't think about a lot and कुछ होगा तो we'll edit it out, ठीक है? So tell me about a bug you have shipped, like कभी production उड़ाए हो.
Yeah, I was working on this iOS app and local cache mein, I had to write an encryption logic.
Okay.
And I didn't put this encryption logic behind a feature ramp, I'll say. मतलब I didn't
Feature
put
flag.
a feature flag. I said कि चल तो रहा है लोकल टेस्टिंग में डाल दो क्या दिक्कत है मेरा लोकल
Right.
चल रहा है ना चलेगा
Right.
एंड जैसे ही it got to 10% in production all hell broke loose because once the data is encrypted in a wrong way
Hmm.
the person has to uninstall the app only. Not
Wow.
even yeah that probably cost me promotion for 6 months but yeah it's worth the experience.
All right. If you weren't a developer, what would you be doing in life? If AI did 100% of your code, what would you spend your time on?
I'll probably be opening a cafe, food into some food business. Not a large scale business, but given that I had worked in the IT industry and earned big bucks, then
वो हो चुका है भाई वो हो चुका है you have been in Microsoft for 8 years now.
के
So
बाद, yeah, yes, I agree. That's the
any particular location where you'd want to open it?
Uttarakhand, not
All right.
Himachal. Uttarakhand. I think when you go to McLeodganj, वगैरह, majority of the cafes are owned by IT people only. It's overpopulated there, and soon it will become an IT hub, IT resting place there. So I'll probably
Right.
go Uttarakhand, yeah.
What's the longest time you have spent something debugging and it turned out to be something small, something silly? Like how
Eight
much time at a time?
for full night, 12 hours. Wo- there was something that we shipped, and the encryption, majority of things have been getting encryption only. Somebody changed one line of, so people come and say, okay, oh, let me optimize this code here. Encryption, this include time, let me optimize this thing here. And code get checked in here. Even you have stringent process, sometimes something may happen and things get broken down. People don't think about backward compatibility. कि तुमने
Right.
put your new algorithm. What about the existing users
Hmm.
whose data is encrypted in that specific in the older algorithm वाले phase में? उनका क्या?
Right.
When the data source is corrupted, the issues come everywhere. You will never know what the issue is. Some will say my screen is not opening up, my screen has jam, my app is crashing. It took time for me at least to deal with that. Yeah. So overnight, I think we were sitting. It
All
was
right. All right. Yeah. Encryption is non-reversible. Okay. Show us like a random desk item, whatever is around you right now.
My phone.
अरे भाई फोन तो होता ही है, फोन फोन तो लाइक शो समथिंग एल्स.
Eh,
ऐसा लग रहा है यू आर नॉट प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दिस क्वेश्चन एट ऑल.
Actually, I want to prepare oats for myself.
Oh, okay.
पड़ा हुआ था.
अच्छा, so you start your morning with oats?
Today I took some. Generally, I have eggs and yogurt,
अच्छा.
bean, and then a lot of coffee to go to gym. Today I just thought of taking a light breakfast. Oats are light only.
हाँ, अभी तो लाइक द फेज यू आर इन, अभी तो तुम्हें कॉफी चाहिए भाई.
Me and my wife are caffeine addicts. I'll say we already have a lot of coffee.
Okay, I think I'll also show. I think this is something I got recently. This is the
One Piece cup.
fuel. Yeah. So I love this hat now. Maybe I'll just do continue the rest with this on. This is super fun. Last rapid fire question. What's one thing that coding has taught you about life?
Struggle. You may be gifted to do some things. I've seen exceptional talents, but unless and until you're willing to put in some extra effort and work, things won't come to you. And more than coding, it's corporate life actually. And corporate life is a different being altogether. You know,
Okay.
coding has just taught me normal to work hard and whatnot. Corporate life has taught me that how to say things politely to people. That stays with me. We have been in college with me. I was very on the face. Coding has
Right.
taught me not to abuse. Corporate world has taught me not to abuse people on the face and say, okay, can we do it in some better way? Can you rethink it?
Instead
Maybe
of saying, "Nahi, bhai, this is bad."
obviously it's a shit design. Hey,
Yeah,
I've given some suggestions. Can you please look into it?
it's like political speak.
It helped in my family matters at least to handle my
Interesting.
relatives at least. Some of them.
I don't know.
Once you have worked with some folks in the corporate world, you generally
Okay.
don't feel angry at people because there's always worse than.
The baseline has gone ऐसा below.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of creatures in the corporate world at least.
Okay, you have remembered a couple of names already. Just thinking about this answer, कि हाँ भाई ये है, ये है, ये है. Okay, we will move to the last section. This is proper takeaway section for the listeners. So, how would you start today in the age of AI? This is something that anyone listening, they would like directly they can take it away. Knowing what you do right now, and if you have to start from scratch, learn coding, start your job, get into the tech industry as a fresher or as a junior developer with a couple of years of experience, how should they leverage the current scene?
Yeah. So I can give you some real life examples that I have used AI personally, right? I first used AI when I was shifting from iOS development to backend development. At that time, Copilot was up and coming.
Hmm.
I was working on a service that we were migrating to Kubernetes
Okay.
from a very legacy stack. And I didn't knew K of Kubernetes at that time. And I just thought, okay, how will I do this, man? I've taken responsibility of moving to backend, but hey, I'm stuck here now. At that time, I had a Chat GPT ka premium subscription with Search and GPT-4. Like I actively used it to get the initial base design. Like because again, I didn't had enough time to do a full-fledged learning on the back end, right? I had to ship something on the work. It
Right.
had to focus. So with various design iterations that GPT gave me, right, I got to know about all the components that I should be worrying about. And then that became my single source of truth. The final design wasn't final, but you get the initial gist of it, right? I did a great detailed study on all of those components. And then with my understanding and what GPT told me, I made some iterations over it. And then I was able to present that idea to my team that hey, we should ship like this. As developers should not only use, I know there's a lot of focus on coding using LLM model. I think design aspect is also that people ignore. Designing architecting problems has become much more easier. It's just like your first round of iteration or first round of view AI will do for you. So time saving is something that people should do if you use it properly, and learning also. Specific focus learning makes it makes you do that. Second is when I shipped that thing, I thought okay, maybe I wanted to work on problems that involve me being interacting with actual customer experience. So I moved back to the iOS development ka part. The only bad point about backend I found was that I was not interacting with the actual user tabs. User
Right.
click, you something opened up the delight.
Right. Right.
You mostly take requirements from your clients. And your clients are your web apps, your phones and whatnot.
The feedback loop is longer in front end development. You can see, okay, this is how my user is interacting. This is,
Yeah.
you can show your app to someone and you can see kaise ho raha interaction, what is confusing, what is great. But back in May, it's like APIs. So pretty much it's just numbers on the screen and data on the screen, and you have to make sense of it, how everything works.
Yeah. So when I went back again to iOS development, right, I was shit scared. How will I code again after 2 years? And the stack that has completely changed now. Unlike backend where text stays for some time, front-end में change हो गया. So I said, okay, shit, man. So at that time, I again went back to Copilot, right? And there's a tool called Repo Pack. It's an open source tool. I think people should use it more. So Repo Pack is a tool which is based on a research paper, I think published by Anthropic, on how you can format your code and feed it to any LLM model to give it better context of your current code.
Acha, is it like you have different files talking about different things of your project,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then the entire context goes?
Let's say you have MVVM model following, right? You have models, your views and view models, right? Generally, these layers talk to each other with interfaces, but view model in itself is a very good logical unit. So when you have some architectures which have already modularized the code, you can run that tool. For example, I went back to an app, let's say OneDrive or let's say SharePoint or any other app. Let's say I changed the company, I went into Zomato. There'll be some sort of components there, major components are there. So the first thing I'll do is I will use the repo pack tool to run on those modules, and it will
Okay.
generate me one big file as in the format that majority of the LLM models
LLM
understand,
provided. Hmm.
right? And you feed it to them. You can ask as many questions. Like I'll tell you what, people don't realize the fact that the days and times of browsing through the entire code, putting debugging points, this you still meant to do that. You can simply ask LLM model to answer your queries and it will give you the correct answer. It
Right.
understands very well. The ramping up on a new code base, the time has reduced a lot. I also tell my teammates that if you're taking more time to ramp up on code, given that we have already free Copilot, then you're doing something wrong in your thing. Yeah. It's not possible.
Right.
Unless and until you don't have any modular code that the code is so big that even when you run a tool like repo pack on it, the file becomes so big that it can't be fed to an LLM. So that's a bigger problem altogether.
Right.
Then you should question your architect, okay, why is it happening?
Time for a rewrite.
Time for a rewrite for sure. Or dump the app. It's not possible. MBBM, you will at least have MBC in your app, right?
Correct.
Basic minimal to hoga hi, right? So then is how you onboard to a new code base. Second part is how do you make a prompt so that your pull requests or your code quality remains intact. People talk a lot about prompt engineering, right? Prompt this, prompt that, right? I'll say one thing is start using Repo Pack, right? Microsoft has permitted us to use Repo Pack. It's that good. Second is for a new developer who is starting the development, when you raise a first PR, you will get a lot of comments for sure. Keep a prompt for the PR comments that you're getting. Have them noted down in a separate file and then ask OpenAI or any LLM model. Sorry, I will promote OpenAI, but sorry, yeah, it gives us more money.
Fair. Fair. Fair.
Or I'll say the name of Claude also, right? Yeah. Anything that you can use, right? So you just simply make a list of all the comments you're getting and ask the model to create a prompt of code dependent for you. That will actually act as a first code review for you from the AI. It's actually pretty good. It saves you a lot of time. I have done it. We do it constantly. So we have a team in IDC, we have a team in Edmond. So there's always a gap in the coding size, right?
Right.
But this has actually solved the problem. This is AI
Yes.
as a bridge of code reviews, because what feedback they give us, what feedback we have on their code, right? It's a bridge in between where we have our prompt from the pull request feedback that we have got. So it does one initial review.
Right. This is pretty good, and I don't think a lot of people are doing it right now. I am actually hearing it for the first time. This is pretty ingenious because you're saving a lot of time. Because this actually happens a lot. If same kind of people are reviewing, they'll keep on giving same type of comments.
Yeah,
For example, this used to happen in linting, right? Okay, either spacing SI, and then we had those linter rules already integrated, which on commit they just
yeah,
format it according to the rules. Like सबका अलग अलग होता है, right? कि भाई यहाँ imports के पहले line छोड़ना है नहीं छोड़ना
correct,
है,
correct.
क्या arrangement होना चाहिए, trailing white space allowed नहीं है. Like सबका अपना अपना होता है, and the linter file solved it. So something similar, which is okay, this person, this team will review it, and you know what they look for in the code because you have the history, right? That's where AI is the most powerful.
Yes,
Given history, you can save a lot of time, have V1 review done it for you privately, you fix all those things, and then you actually raise the pull request. And so the comments, the time can be used better on architectural decisions and not like minor code events.
and that's just the starting. The models have just come up. Things will get
Yeah.
improved later on, right?
So you talked about how currently employed people, experienced people can use AI more effectively. Any overall tips for current job seekers, people who are looking to take entry? How should they go about it?
So I also have a little brother, right, coming up, and he will study as well. So what I tell is the college hires and the new people who are seeking job, right, they will go through courses like Groking and other courses online. I'll say go through them. They're required. But what you can do extra is you can actually add some more research points to it using AI. It'll give you brownie points for sure. You know,
We थोड़ा go deeper on that
for
example.
example, there's a very common question on courses like Groking, right? Design an app like Instagram.
Hmm.
Everyone knows you. They will ask you to use a white column DB, Cassandra, whatever, blah blah blah.
Right, right,
They don't go that much deep into it, right? They don't go deep. Why or how? Or you take the entire problem and solution statement from Groking, feed it to OpenAI, and ask questions. Be curious, ask questions. You will be surprised to see what extra insights AI will give you in terms of learning. It happened with my friend at least who was trying to find a job. So he actually asked the question, "Ki, hey, why use Cassandra here? Why not use this DB?" So I answered, Ki, hey, it depends on your use case. So data is like this, you may better use SQL only here. See? So that thing may help you learn faster, I'll say.
right, right.
Because
Makes sense.
at the end of the lead code has become too popular. Everyone does lead code. Now people are more concerned about system design, right?
Hmm.
So the bar and people will use piracy or whatnot to get the groking the codes done. In our time, it was a very unique thing. People were not that much aware of it, so many people got to a lot of good companies by simply reading the codes.
Right.
I remember one of my friend gave interview of Facebook once, and they asked some question, and he replied in a fat se answer में groking answer. And the engineer they replied कि ये तो उस course में है already. इसके
Right.
आगे बताओ. Right. तो
Uh,
वो I think वो जब when these system design courses become mainstream, you'll have to do something extra
hmm.
to see. And I tell, and one of my person who is much more senior to me, he just joined as a staff software engineer in Salesforce.
Okay.
So I asked him, "Ki, yaar, what did you do extra?
Hmm.
What from where do you read the problems?" He said, "The problems were same, Suraj. Everyone asked the same problems only. The issue with system design is that people, I shouldn't say people who ask, people who answer. There's a high chance that both of them haven't worked on that large scale system. The problems will be same.
Very right.
Problems will be same only, but how much depth have you gotten into that matters. And I'm saying that AI can save you time in going to that depth.
Hmm.
You don't need to search 10 different sources to find the answer. No.
Right.
Majority of sites are given access to OpenAI, or Gemini has access to pretty much everything. And
Right.
it's free. Like you ask questions about what blocking the course has taught you, and you have no idea how much deep you can possibly go there. Save time in doing that stuff. And that's how you can people should leverage AI.
This is a good point to end on, which is use AI to save time, but then put that saved time into building depth. This is the nuance that people miss. People are like, हाँ ये जल्दी कर लिया, इससे फटाफट आंसर मिल गया, and then they are doing something else. नहीं, the time you have saved, if you use that to build depth, again cross question the AI and just ask why on why you're doing this, get more data, and try to understand, go through more case studies, understand why something was done at a particular place. The
Yes.
more experience you go through, or simply you write more code, you build more apps, you design things more, become a doer, do more things, do more reps, go into the depth. That's how you build an edge in the current age.
And that's true for the new folks also and for old folks also, right? For us. I
Right.
was talking to one of my
For
managers.
us, man, we are coming in the old folks now. ठीक. Yeah, it's a sad 30s में हो गया ना अपन, अब थोड़ा oldies में आ गए हम.
Oldies company. Yeah, in software development, 30 is old. So I was talking to one of my current manager once. So I was saying, कि, yeah, senior developer people, I will give the prompt to the new folks. 2 weeks it will take him. 2 weeks. He write the same code as me because I'm not writing the code.
Right.
AI is writing the code and he has all the prompts and the feedback. What is the difference between me and him? Said, okay, the only thing that can save us in this market is domain knowledge. If I am currently working on photos, what to work on is different, that will come up later.
हाँ.
So, to know why do we need a feature? What is the rationale behind this feature? And what should be the benchmark of that feature? What should be quality bar that we have to set up, bare minimum? How snappy our app should be? All those things, right? The domain knowledge for the photos area is something that AI may build. And also, an app targets specific people. You may not target everyone. There's still apps for photos that exist and people use them. Google Photos is the main app, right? But there's still apps who are up and running in the photos area and they're making money.
Right.
So there's something that they're doing for some specific customer base. They know their customers.
Right.
That's something that can help people like us going. Otherwise, there's no difference. The coding part is pretty much same. One more thing is once you experience how to handle tough situations, like when you have to take a call, take a decision. So at that time, AI won't help you. That time you experience when you have to cut a feature. Say, for example, we had a fight I think last week saying, hey, why do you need this with our PM team? Why do you need this feature? To the dev team, we have to take a stand. And that comes with experience. Okay, hey, this thing should be pushed back. AI will
Right.
tell you, hey, you should do like this, you should do that's a thing that
Yeah, so it's like working with constraints. What team you have, the people around you, how to get everyone on the same page, and then execute it. Like idea to AI दे देगा, but you have to actually execute it, roll it out as well, and that takes a lot of people skills and like collaboration.
that is my only concern in the today's age of AI. It is not for the up and coming developers, but people who have chosen to take a path of engineering, right? It will become more difficult. Engineering path will become more difficult as we go because engineering in general, with the advent, with the more progress in the AI models, what is the architecting part? You cannot compete with a model that has billions of parameters, has access to entire knowledge base. Right? You
Right.
instead of 5, 6 engineers, you need only like, senior engineers, you need only one.
True.
Either you be that person, or either you start developing, as you mentioned, that taking a hard call, managing teams. That's what I feel at least.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Cool, cool. For folks who have reached here till the end, drop in the comments what's your main takeaway from this overall conversation so that we know, Kecha, the points that we wanted to convey, what all actually got through to you. Share your takeaways in the comments below. And also share any other questions, any other queries you have around anything, whether you are just an up and coming developer or you are an experienced person. I think if we get like enough more queries, we can get Suraj back for another deep dive on AI or whatever, like whatever topic people are interested in. We can do more of these candid conversations. But yeah, I had fun. I had fun doing this. Like it did not feel like like work basically. I think this was super fun for me. So yeah, I think I'll do more of it. All right, cool, folks. See you next time. Bye bye.